Welcome along to another episode of Horsing Around with Horsepower. My name is Jishnu.
My name is Max, and today we have a special guest. His name is Marc. And Marc, so tell us more about yourself.
Hi, I'm Mark, and I'm a student in mechanical engineering, and I like Formula One and anything with four wheels.
Right? So, Marc, as we do with any guest on our podcast, we got two questions to ask you.
Sure.
First question is, how did you get into F1?
So when I was young, I actually started watching the Singapore Grand Prix. I think when it came out in 2008 was the first time I watched it. And I saw this blue-colored zoom thingy. There was Sebastian Vettel store also, and I thought it was cool. So I think I begged my grandparents to get me a model of it, and yeah, that's what got me addicted to Formula One.
Strangely enough, that was sort of how I got interested as well. Where it was during the first Singapore night race as well in 2008. Well, good to know that. Next question would be, if you had a choice to drive one car, any F1 car, at any racetrack, what would it be?
The Brown GP or the 2020 Mercedes. Because both are legendary cars in each of their own ways. I mean, the Brown won the championship on its debut race.
Yeah.
The Mercedes is a record-breaking car. So I drive both of them at Marina Bay mainly because I know the circuit pretty well. And it's the only circuit that I can go around without punting other people off in online races. So yeah, I guess I could do pretty well.
I think I can really relate to that, Mark. I've spent a lot of time on F1 2020 as well. And why don't we start off with the Austrian Grand Prix that just happened? How do you think it was? Do you find it an interesting race, a boring race? How would you rate it?
I find that it was one of the more boring races of the season. I mean, Austria generally has been an exciting race, but with how France has panned out, it's sort of diluted the past two races. Austria number one and Austria number two. It's a more strategical based sort of race where I mean, Verstappen had a really good race. Credit to him. Whereas I feel that the midfield battle was relatively interesting, but not up there in terms of excitement. Although I feel that the Russell Alonso battle was pretty interesting and quite exciting in terms of seeing whether the slowest or second slowest car on the grid could hold back a two-time world champion.
Yeah, that was really nice to see. And to our fans, to our listeners, we're going to be talking more about the Austrian Grand Prix in our next episode, where we will dive in together with Hanno and Max about the different instances in the race weekend from pre-practice all the way through the race. And we're going to be talking about things like why there were so many penalties in the race and what happened to Mercedes, basically. And for this week's episode, we're going to start off with some of the big controversial talking points because this, as you know, is the banter episode. So I can't wait to start talking about this. Max, why don't you tell our listeners?
Neither can I.
Clearly, he can't wait to start talking about this.
Exactly.
Max, why don't you tell us what happened with the new pit stop regulations that FIA plan to bring in? What's it all about, and why is it happening?
Yes. So essentially, FIA announced that there has to be a minimum time of around 2.2 seconds for each and every pit stop, which to me is absolutely absurd. It totally defeats the purpose of Formula One, right? If you ask me all about that. Okay, now, but before I proceed, it all started because Mercedes asked the FIA about changes that they intended to make to the safety mechanism that involved in during their pit stop. However, there's rumors around that actually this triggered the FIA to look into the safety issue regarding Red Bull pit stops because they realized like Red Bull was anomally fast, right? Weren't they? Like doing sub 2 seconds all this time.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird. Like hey, there's something going on. It's not right. And so they investigated. They didn't really investigate it. But what they actually went to do is that they want to put a rule down stating that there has to be a minimum of 0.15 seconds delay between the wheel nuts being fully tightened and the start of the front jack. and then there must be at least another 0.2 seconds time between the jack was released and the green light being shown to the driver to move off. The logic behind this is because the FIA noted that the average human reaction time cannot actually, it's impossible to achieve a sub 2 second stop with just using human reaction times. And so using that assumption, they're thinking that Red Bull are maybe using automatic sensors to release the cars and to give the green light. So because they find it unsafe, that's why they want to clamp this down. But I'm really disappointed. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. I think Marc has similar sentiments towards the FIA because it totally defeats the purpose of the sport, right? Like, the whole entire meaning of Formula One is to go fast and to set new records, not trying to stop records from being broken, right?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I feel that what you said was right about records being broken. Second thing is, well, we've seen in the past that quick pit stops can really make or break a race. And by slowing everyone down, it will still be a factor in terms of, well, the racing, but it's not going to be as exciting to see, oh, maybe Verstappen's gone a 1.8 in the pits compared to Hamilton, who did a 3.2 per se, where it could change the outcome of the race by a lot. We've seen that in Singapore 2019 to a small extent with Vettel and Leclerc, with Leclerc leading the race and Vettel doing the undercut, which I feel that the pit stop really helped him. And yeah, slowing down the pit stop is one of just the few missteps the FIA have done in recent years to so-called improve racing.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, I can see that point, and I can see that point totally. I mean, the name of the game is all about speed. You know, it's about trying to get the shortest time possible, and all that. So I can definitely agree with you guys when you say that. You know, it seems totally unreasonable. But as a Mercedes fan, I need to point out that, you know, a lot of people are being angry towards Mercedes because they felt that Mercedes are the ones that triggered FIA to look into this.
Yeah.
But
I mean-
can I just say for the defense of Mercedes that this is a very common thing that happens in Formula One. You know, teams often complain about one another, especially the fastest teams, complaining about the championship leaders, and
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's normal for like the winning team, or like in this case Red Bull with the fastest pit stop, to point their fingers towards Mercedes and blame them. But in all honesty, even I myself as a Red Bull fan, it's really not Mercedes' fault. Like, I'm pretty sure it wasn't in their it wasn't part of the intention to actually cause this change of rules.
yeah, but I mean, even if it was, I feel like looking at the past instances where FIA has introduced regulation changes to sort of with the unintentional effect of slowing down the leader, shall we say. Like if you look back in the past, Mercedes always had this thing called the party mode in qualifying, especially in 2018, 2019, where they would just turn it up in qualifying, turn up the engine in qualifying, and then they'll be able to pull off this incredible qualifying laps. And then the FIA literally implemented the party mode regulations, saying that the engine mode should not be turned up in qualifying. And I feel like, you know, that's just there's no safety aspect involved over there. It's literally for the purpose of slowing down the championship leader and to make the competition tighter.
Yeah,
Which I agree we should make the competition tighter, but should we be doing that by slowing down the leader,
exactly.
or should we be doing that by helping the other teams catch up? You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
You guys might want to remember that in 2018, I believe, when Formula One changed to the Liberty Media stakeholders, they were called engineered insanity. And, well, isn't pit stops part of the engineering and the insanity where, well, a team like Red Bull or Williams could pull off a sub 2 second sub 2 second pit stop and just break world records?
That is very true. I mean, I definitely feel that, you know, we should not try to slow down the sport itself, you know, for the sake of competition. So in this opinion, I feel like, you know, FIA should be doing something different over here. But at the same time, I understand that, you know, it's their duty to literally prioritize safety, you know, over the fairness of the competition. So
exactly. But they shouldn't sacrifice safety for outright like speed and like trying to achieve technological advancements, which is what they're doing right now. That's why we are so angry at them.
I feel that it's a double-edged sword in the sense that, yeah, FIA are kind of shooting us in the foot, or rather, just screwing up the racing and just making it a bit more boring that we can't see sub 2 second stops. But don't forget that every time FIA has sort of tried to slow down the competition, there have also been pretty good competition. 2010, 2009, 2012, I believe, with the step noses, was also quite a tight season. So I think that the pit stop thing might slightly contribute to racing, but not as much as probably the 2022 Rex. So yeah.
Right, and also I feel like I should clarify that that there are two parties involved in this. One is obviously FIA, and the other is F1. So F1 is the organization that's responsible for sort of ensuring that the competition is fair and things remain competitive, and the sport is basically the entertainment value is there. And then FIA is their responsibility is to ensure that the sport remains safe and quick basically. So I feel like FIA are doing their job, but it's just really unfortunate that this is slowing down. This is very often the case that their regulations end up slowing down the championship leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's not get too bogged down on this per se. But I guess we can all agree that what FI's new decision was is kind of dumb, and it doesn't really help the sport much. I'm guessing we can all agree on that.
Yep.
Yep.
And now to the next point of this episode would be that why the hell are Mercedes' car so slow, Jishnu? Why?
Good question, Max.
I don't understand why. As a non-Mercedes fan, I myself was really surprised.
I have a couple of sensible reasons lined up, but can I also point out that ever since we started this podcast, which was just before Monaco, Mercedes have been having pretty rough weekends,
Yeah.
and Red Bull, on the other hand, have gone on to win the 5 consecutive races in a
Yes,
row.
they did.
So I can't help but think that this might have something to do with it.
Mhm.
But let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at what could be some of the realistic reasons. So after the first race in Austria, Toto Wolff actually noted in the press that Red Bull had brought in trucks full of upgrades to their car, and they were rushing their upgrades to the extent that they only had one new rear diffuser to bring into the track. So Verstappen obviously got the new diffuser, and then for the second race they had to manufacture the new upgrade in time to ensure that Perez also had the upgrade. So Red Bull are really pushing flat out on this season's car, it seems like. And whereas Mercedes, Toto Wolff and James Allison actually mentioned that they have switched focus to 2022 car already, and they do have one upgrade planned, which is going to be coming out in
Yep.
Silverstone next week. But in terms of focusing their efforts and research and development, they've already been switched over to 2022. So there's some question as to whether or not this is the right choice, and whether or not they should be sacrificing this year's championship. But what do you guys think, Mark? What do you think?
I feel that for the sake of competing in a new era, Mercedes can forgo this championship. It would still be an interesting thing to see, a title fight between Verstappen and Lewis and probably Perez.
Yeah.
But if Mercedes focus to the new era, like what they did back in 2013 with the introduction of the V6 turbo hybrids, they could really get a jump on Red Bull, because Red Bull are sort of wasting their time in a sense by introducing upgrades. Well, yeah, they could win the season again, like what happened in 2013 with Vettel. But as we've seen in 2014 with the new engines, Red Bull were nowhere
Yep.
compared to Mercedes, who probably spend most of their time developing the new power unit. So I feel that Mercedes are taking a step in the right direction by focusing on next year's Rex, getting a head start, probably getting some tricks into the car. Same with Haas maybe. Haas might
Yep.
also be top of the midfield or something.
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, if they still continue to upgrade their car like Red Bull, there could be a title fight. I mean, Mercedes has been pretty strong after the mid-season, throughout the past few years, especially with 2018.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be interesting.
Yeah, I'm actually expecting Mercedes, right? With the next upgrade in due for Silverstone, I'm expecting them to actually close the gap, which makes it it makes me even more worried actually. It's fine. It's fine. I do appreciate the competition though, actually. But yeah, I do find that I think them focusing on the 2022 car is pretty alright decision lah. Even if like they are doing that and not focusing on the 2021 car, I'm still surprised that their current car is still so competitive actually, which really surprises me.
Right. And actually, one of the bigger reasons why Mercedes seem to have switched focus to the 2022 car is actually because of the new floor regulations that were brought in for 2021. And what the regulations means is that teams that run a higher rake, which is basically the angle between the track and the bottom of the car. So a higher rake essentially means a higher angle. And Red Bull is one of the teams that runs a far higher angle of rake than other teams. And F1.com noted that these regulations actually helps teams with higher rake because it means that any aerodynamic development that they make in the floor region actually has a higher impact on their cars. So it essentially means that Mercedes will have to work harder than Red Bull for every bit of performance gain because of new regulations. So that could be one of the reasons why Mercedes feel that they have to switch very early on into the 2022 car.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, and also another factor to note is that Red Bull seem to be faster in the straights, which is very surprising because that was always a problem for them in the past. We've always go to like tracks like Singapore and Monaco, and then they'll be super quick, right on pace with the Ferraris and the Red Bulls in the past. But this year they seem to be faster also in the straights, which was what made for a very interesting past few couple of races. And Lewis Hamilton suggested that this might have something to do with the Honda power unit, but that was not the case, was it, Max?
Yeah, no, I don't think so, right? Because Red Bull actually mentioned that it's the increase in performance is due to the engineers actually better understanding their engine, which allowed them to make changes to it and actually extract more power from the Honda power unit.
Yeah, and also the aerodynamic developments that Red Bull have been doing, with regards to the rear diffuser especially, has enabled them to sort of make their rear wings thinner because they can take that downforce from the floor itself instead of taking it from the wing. And there's always this trade-off between downforce and drag when it comes to the rear wing, which is what makes it seem that they are going faster on the straights because of the power unit, but it's actually because of this clever bit of aerodynamic development that's been going on. And it's actually also worth noting that the engine development for this season has actually been halted by FIA because they want to save costs, and new upgrades can only be made for reliability reasons, to the extent that all the manufacturers and the FIA actually have to approve an upgrade for all the teams before it can be made. And that's why Honda said that it's not their power unit that is making all the changes to Red Bull's pace.
Yeah, I agree. And for any of those new viewers who are just wondering, like, what's rear diffuser, like, what's all that? Essentially, the rear diffuser is the bottom portion of the car that you see from the rear. That area actually, they design it such that it creates a suction in it, and it literally sucks the car into the ground, providing extra downforce. That was what Jishnu was mentioning about the trade-off between the downforce as well as the rear wings.
Yep.
Moving on, actually, we've talked enough about the cars, about the tracks. Let's move on to the drivers instead. Now, news just broke a few days ago that Hamilton has just signed another 2 years with Mercedes, only barely a month after starting conversations. So, but now Hamilton's position has been guaranteed. The question leaves to be answered, which is who is going to take that second seat at Mercedes? What do you guys think?
I actually think that the rumors that Russell could be announced at Silverstone
Ooh.
could be quite possible, actually. I mean, we're going into Mercedes's technically home race, one of their home race. It's still in UK. So with Hamilton being the first British driver to be confirmed apart from Norris, Russell hasn't had any real negotiations with Williams, as far as I could read from news sources and stuff. So it could be possible that Williams might hold him back for another year. I mean, he's the one that's carrying the team mostly to pretty decent positions, P11, P12, Q3 in Austria, especially Latifi as well. So I feel that there is a 50-50 chance that Russell could be announced for Mercedes in Silverstone, or also keep his seat in Williams with Latifi, or maybe even Nissani, since he's been doing all these FP1 tests recently with the team.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Jason? What do you think? Who's going to take that second seat?
Well, firstly, I'm very happy that Hamilton has signed for 2 years. I can't bear the thought of him leaving F1 just about yet, without his eighth title in the bag yet. So it's good to see him there. But as for the second seat, it is wow, mixed opinions really. For one, I feel like Bottas is he's had a difficult few years. Let's be honest. He had some tough luck, but also in some opinions, in some ways, he has brought that upon himself. Like he hasn't really shown that he's able to compete with Hamilton throughout a season consistently, which is quite disappointing. But on occasion, he shows like he has real pace. So while I am a fan of continuity, I feel like Russell really, really deserves the seat. And his talent has only been shining through and through in these past few couple of races. So I personally would say I would want to see Russell in the second seat for Mercedes next year. So sorry to Bottas, but I guess 4 years is plenty of long enough time for him to prove himself.
Yeah, maybe they can do the old switcheroo, bring Russell to Mercedes and put Bottas back into Williams, perhaps.
That
But
yeah, true. That is possible.
that could be a possibility. I'm actually that's where I'm putting my money on. Would it be likely? No, actually, it would be unlikely that they will demote Russell back to Williams. Sorry, I mean Bottas to Williams. Yeah, but Russell going up to Mercedes, it is possible because seeing his performance throughout the year is really solid. But then again, we are not sure how Mercedes would like it if they are like two fast drivers or like
Right.
two competing two drivers that wants to compete for the world championship. I mean, we all saw that evidently during the Hamilton Rosberg era. Yeah, that didn't end up well, did it? No, definitely not.
It went so sour to the extent that Toto Wolff had to even threaten their drivers with a race ban. So
Yeah.
not sure if Toto Wolff will want to do that again this time.
Yeah, maybe he learned his lesson already.
But
And
I guess it also raises a question about, is it right for Russell to have to wait for so long for a top drive? Because you look at other drivers, Verstappen got a Red Bull seat in like his second year. But I think you can say that he's a bit of an exceptional case considering he joined F1 when he was like 16, 17. And then you
yeah,
have other drivers like Perez who's had to wait like 10 years for getting a top drive. And
Yeah.
that's despite being a Ferrari driver academy driver in his youth. And then he was also being scouted by McLaren early on. So it raises a lot of question about the driver market, which is something that's really exciting.
yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
But unfortunately, like much of this information isn't publicly available to us. Like the behind the scenes, it's all of a sudden like team and the drivers just announced that I'm signing a contract with this team so and so. So it's really still behind the curtain, sort of lah.
Yeah. And another second driver contract that has yet to be renewed is in Red Bull. Do you guys think it's going to be Perez or Gasly, or is it going to be Tsunoda maybe even?
I think it's actually still going to be Perez. I mean, he's really proven himself to be a really consistent driver. He's been in the points
Yep.
practically every race as far as I can remember. He's done really, really well. He's won in Baku. Although a bit of luck was on his side. I mean, his teammate did have a puncture and all.
Yeah.
But with Perez consistently being in the top 5 on the podium, unlike his predecessors of Gasly and Albon, I feel that they would keep him for 2022, possibly 2023 and onwards,
Right.
if he does really well.
I think it's going to be Perez as well. I mean, looking at his recent form, I feel like it's going to be Perez. Plus, Red Bull, they haven't really have a great history of bringing back drivers to their teams, like moving up and down. So I don't think they'll be comfortable with bringing Gasly back into a Red Bull,
Yeah,
especially with Perez's recent form.
yeah, exactly. For me, I think they'll just keep Perez there as well. He's proven not only actually in the past few races with Red Bull, but also in his previous teams in Racing Point and in Force India. In fact, if I remember during his time in Force India, out of all the races, out of all the years they were running, right, he was the one that actually scored most, if not all, of the podium finishes, all achieved by him. So it really goes to show like the talent that he possesses. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Helmut Marko will not be pleased to bring back Gasly at all. He just wouldn't want to.
I mean, it will really put a dent on his
Image, right?
Yeah,
for Marco. But I feel that Gasly would deserve a top drive. I mean, he's done really well in the AlphaTauri. Quite a few podiums, a win in Monza, although still luck again, but yeah, he's a consistent driver when he's not the one getting shunted or anything.
Yeah.
He's quite a great driver. He has the will to drive fast, especially in Spa, if I remember correctly, after he was booted and the death of his friend Antoine. So yeah, I hope Gasly gets a top drive
Yeah,
soon.
and you know what? Something that I'm really excited about is actually looking at all the contracts that are being signed and the contracts that actually exist. You're seeing all the young drivers really make a switch up, or like they're preparing for next generation of title contenders. Looking at Verstappen at Red Bull, Leclerc at Ferrari, Lando Norris at McLaren, and could we see Russell at Mercedes? Maybe, hopefully, who knows? It's all very exciting to see. And one of the other teams that are really concerned about their future, or not really concerned, I would say, but like this team is really taking some strong steps forwards, and really look to be uh, pushing for the title challenges in the next coming years. And that is, of course, Aston Martin. They are, of course, reshuffling their team and implementing a new technical structure that is supposed to be mirroring some of the most successful F1 teams like Ferrari and Mercedes and Red Bull, according to Lawrence Stroll, the team owner. And this is a bit of an interesting news because Aston Martin is a huge brand, but so far they've been a pretty unknown team. Like it's been running through so many different names and so many different owners and management, and now they are here to properly fight for the title. So they're really hiring strong people from other teams, and most notably they've hired Red Bull's current head of aerodynamics, who actually worked with Red Bull right from their early days in 2006. So he's been working together with Adrian Newey, and he's been around for the championship winning years. So yeah, and Aston Martin also plans to hire over 200 personnel, and they also plan to open a new factory next year. All of this to help them take the fight to the top teams. What do you guys think about this team? Are they ready to fight for titles? What do you think about them?
So you're saying the guy from Red Bull betrayed Red Bull to move into Aston just because Lawrence Stroll said, "Oh, I'm gonna pay you more, join me."
Yeah,
Yeah, but essentially, I'm really not sure on this one. I guess this isn't something that you achieve within the season or within the next season. It takes time, so not in the foreseeable future, per se. But yeah, likely maybe 5 years down the road, you never know. It can be at where Mercedes is right now, even Red Bull. Yeah, is F1 is bound to change, and change is always constant.
right. That is very true. And well, Mark, any thoughts on Aston Martin?
Well, I'm a fan of Aston Martin, so my take might be a bit biased, but I feel that if they get a jump on the 22 ranks, they could be in the top midfield, maybe like McLaren, where they could be also fighting for wins. For championship, maybe it'll take 2 to 3 years, but I can definitely see them with a great driver pairing. And I mean, Lance Stroll was not really the best driver during his rookie years, but he's definitely improved a lot. I mean, pole position at a soaking wet, oily, greasy Turkish Grand Prix, just like their
Wait,
food.
what?
Yeah, it's.
What?
I mean, that qualifying lap was based on just skill, and not even Hamilton in the title-winning Mercedes that weekend could catch up to Lance Stroll. So in the wet, Lance Stroll is good. I feel that Vettel will also be a great asset to the team, especially after he retires, if he does in the near future. Unlike his dear Ferrari friend Raikkonen, he could be also like a advisor to the team. Where I mean, he has experience with 4 titles, and he could give valuable advice, like Niki Lauda, Alain Prost. Um, who else was there? Alonso for a short while on apparently the junior Formula engines to his former team McLaren. So yeah.
Yep.
Well, just to point out, yeah, you're right on the part where Turkish food being oily and greasy, but not soaking wet. That title is like solely reserved for like the Krabby Patty. Moving on, some closing thoughts, what are your drivers of the day for the Austrian GP?
So mine would be Lando Norris. I mean, he's put up a huge fight against Mercedes, Sergio Perez for a limited amount of laps before he sent him into the gravel, just like Hamilton did with Albon. But yeah, keeping pace with Bottas, especially after the whole chaotic towards the end of the race. Actually, he was keeping I think 1 to 2 seconds of Bottas, which for McLaren, which is essentially a beta version of the Mercedes to some extent. I feel that yeah, he is really, really my driver of the day. Maybe even driver of the weekend, but it will still go to George Russell.
Fair enough. Max, what do you think?
Well, for me, good old boy Dan Rick from down under. I mean, started 13th in qualifying, finished 7th. Really put up a great fight, holding back the Ferraris. Even though we could tell that he was not really comfortable in his car. Really, really fast car, being in a Mercedes. Of course, he didn't manage to hold back the Ferraris in the end, but still, props to him for at least getting into the points, which is which is what I like to see.
Yeah, and I guess we're all going with McLaren then, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Russell put in a great performance. I'll just put in a quick word for him. Really, really top job. To compete with Fernando Alonso and to compete for points just on pure merit. It's really, really incredible what he's doing with the car. But again, I think I'll go with McLaren as well for driver of the day. I'm gonna say Lando Norris because he's also much like George Russell, putting that car like in places where you wouldn't expect it to be, and it's very nice to see a McLaren back at the top. Because originally I started becoming an F1 fan with a Lewis Hamilton in the McLaren, so it's nice to see another young Brit, outperforming his car in a McLaren. So yeah, I would say Lando is definitely my driver of the day. And well, I guess that brings us to the end of this episode. But for you listeners out there, we have another episode coming out later this week. So definitely stick around for that, where we're going to dive into some of the more technical details of the race weekend, not just free practice and qualifying, but also the race itself. We're going to be looking at things like why were there so many penalties? Should Norris have gotten the penalty? That's a very controversial one to talk about. And stuff like, the Perez-Leclerc battle, and why were the Mercedes cars so sensitive to the curbs, particularly Lewis Hamilton's car, and a lot of other interesting stuff to talk about in that episode. So do stick around. And as for today, thank you, Max. Thank you, Marc, for joining us as well.
Thanks to listeners for hearing my very bad opinions about people racing in circles for 2 hours.
Honest opinions.
Yeah, honest
All right.
opinions.
Thank you all viewers. Have a great day.
See you soon.